Think of Antarctica. What comes to mind? Ice, right? Just a huge, empty, frozen wasteland. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? That beneath all that ice, there's a lost world, a world of jungle predators. And even today, the continent is just wrapped in these incredible myths and mysteries. So, let's dive in and uncover some of those secrets.
All right, first stop on our journey, we're going way, way back, millions of years. So I want you to completely forget the ice for a second. Instead, picture this, a lush, green, almost tropical Antarctica. It was teeming with life. But something truly terrifying was stalking through those ancient jungles.
And no, we're not talking about some leftover dinosaur. This was something else entirely. A true super predator that absolutely ruled the continent long after the dinos were history.
So just to give you a sense of scale, we're talking about a creature that stood 6 feet tall. I mean, can you imagine looking this thing right in the eye? It'd be staring right back at you. And it wasn't just tall, it was seriously powerful. We're talking 220 pounds. That's basically the weight of a lion. So yeah, this was not something you wanted to mess with. A serious, serious hunter. And here it is, the terror bird. I mean, what a name, right? The scientific name is Forus ricidicae, if you want to get technical. Paleontologists figured this all out after they found these 2 massive, sharp, curved claw bones over on Seymour Island. And get this, for millions of years, this thing was the apex predator. Nothing could challenge it.
The timeline is actually super cool. So these birds, they first show up in South America, which raises the question, right? How in the world did they get to Antarctica? Well, back then, the 2 continents were actually connected, so animals could literally just walk across. And the terror bird didn't just survive in this new world, it absolutely thrived right up until the continent started to freeze over.
But you know what? The terror bird wasn't the only giant on the block. It totally dominated the land as this flightless sprinter, but the oceans? They were ruled by another monster, a 6-foot-tall ancient penguin. Seriously. And I'm not talking about the cute, waddling birds we know today. Nope. These were human-sized hunters with these long, sharp beaks, just perfectly designed for hunting fish and squid. Wild. Okay, so from prehistoric giants, let's fast forward to the present day. Because Antarctica is still this incredible place of mystery, but you know what? A lot of what we think we know about it is just plain wrong. Let's start with a really common one. You picture an iceberg, right? It breaks off a glacier and just floats away into the sea to melt. Seems pretty straightforward, but the reality is so much more chaotic. Okay, so an iceberg's journey is anything but simple. First off, it can get stuck on the seafloor. And not just for a little while, we're talking decades. There was one famous iceberg that spent nearly 40 years just frozen in place. And then, if it finally breaks free, it might get sucked into these powerful ocean whirlpools, just spinning and spinning for months on end before the currents and winds finally push it along on its completely unpredictable path. All right, let's tackle a big one. This one is super popular in, conspiracy circles. The idea of a massive, impenetrable ice wall that guards Antarctica, preventing anyone from exploring the interior. So, is it real?
The answer? It's a simple, straightforward no. And the proof is pretty solid. It's the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. It's sitting right at the geographic South Pole, and people live there all year round, deep, deep in the continent's interior. So, case closed on that one.
So while there's no secret man-made barrier, the whole ice wall idea does come from something real. It comes from a natural feature called an ice shelf. And these things are massive, huge cliffs of floating ice that make up about 3/4 of Antarctica's coastline. They look like a wall, sure, but they're a totally natural part of the landscape. And of course, you can't talk about Antarctica without talking about the weird stuff the internet finds. A few years back, some Google Maps imagery went viral. It looked like a perfectly carved doorway in the ice. And oh man, the theories just went wild. Was it Bigfoot's vacation home? A secret alien base? You name it, someone thought it. But the real story is, honestly, way simpler and kind of more fascinating. It's just a big chunk of an iceberg that got stuck on the ground. And over time, these incredibly strong winds, plus the natural cycle of melting and refreezing over and over, just happened to sculpt the ice into that bizarre shape. So sorry, no aliens, just some really extreme weather at work.
Okay, so if you can get past the giant ice shelves and the weirdly shaped icebergs, how do people actually get to Antarctica? Well, the answer lies in a fascinating tale of 2 rival cities.
On one hand, you've got Ushuaia in Argentina. Geographically, it's closer, and it's pretty much the main hub for all the tourist cruises. But then you have Punta Arenas in Chile. Even though it's technically further away, that's the real operational gateway. It's where all the regular flights take off, supporting the scientific missions of like 22 different countries.
So you gotta wonder, why did Chile win out? Well, it turns out Argentina made a massive strategic mistake. They built their main airbase, a place called Marambio, way up high on some really rough terrain. This means it's pretty much impossible to reach by land. So everything, and I mean everything, people, food, fuel, has to be flown in by helicopter. It's just incredibly slow and super expensive. Chile, on the other hand, was way smarter. They built efficient, accessible bases, and that's how they became the world's go-to hub for Antarctica.
And all of this human activity, all these flights and bases, it's all happening while the continent itself is going through a really dramatic and frankly terrifying change. A change that kind of echoes its distant, unfrozen past.
Get this. In 2020, scientists on Seymour Island, yep, the exact same island where they found those terror bird fossils, they recorded an unbelievable temperature. 69 degrees Fahrenheit. That's over 20 degrees Celsius. A record-breaking heat wave in literally the coldest place on Earth. Just let that sink in.
And just to put that into perspective for you, the average winter temperature there can drop to -76 Fahrenheit. That one day it was warmer on Seymour Island than it was in parts of Europe. The contrast is it's absolutely shocking.
So what on earth is causing this? Well, scientists say it's basically a perfect storm of factors. For one, heat is moving differently through our planet's oceans and it's warming up the poles. Then you've got melting permafrost all over the world releasing greenhouse gases. And I guess the hard truth is that our climate is just changing a lot faster than anyone's models ever predicted.
And all of this brings us to one final, really unsettling question. As the ice melts and these temperatures keep climbing, are we actually watching the beginning of a return to that ancient, jungle-like world that the terror bird once called home? It's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it? One that connects the continent's deep, deep past with its very uncertain future.